The Sultan's Elixir, a culinary tale of spice and soul. Chapter 1, The Silent Feast. In the heart of the Safavid Empire, in the shimmering city of Isfahan, lived a chef named Amir. His kitchen, though humble, was a sanctuary of flavors, a place where simple ingredients were transformed into poetry for the palate. For Amir, cooking was not merely a craft. It was an act of love, a story told in the language of spice and scent. He believed that a well-prepared dish could soothe a troubled heart, mend a fractured spirit, and even, perhaps, awaken a sleeping soul. The court of Shah Abbas the Great was a spectacle of opulence. Sunlight streamed through the intricate tilework of the Ali Kapu Palace, illuminating halls adorned with silk carpets and walls that echoed with the melodies of lutes and the whispers of courtiers. Yet, amidst this splendor, a profound silence emanated from the royal dining hall. It was a silence born not of peace, but of a deep and abiding sorrow. Prince Karim, the Shah's beloved son and heir, was afflicted with a mysterious malady. A pervasive melancholy had settled upon him like a shroud, dulling his senses and casting a long shadow over his once vibrant spirit. The world, to Prince Karim, had become a symphony without sound, a garden without fragrance, a feast without flavor. He ate, but he did not taste. He listened, but he did not hear. He existed, but he did not truly live. The Shah, his heart heavy with concern, issued a decree that resonated through the bustling bazaars and quiet alleyways of Isfahan. A challenge was laid before the chefs of the empire to create a dish so magnificent, so imbued with life and flavor, that it could penetrate the prince's wall of apathy and reawaken his slumbering senses. A handsome reward and the prestigious title of royal chef awaited the one who could succeed. From far and wide, chefs flocked to the palace, their minds abuzz with culinary ambitions. They presented elaborate creations, mountains of glistening, succulent roasted lambs studded with jewels of pomegranate and delicate pastries that shimmered with gold leaf. Yet, dish after dish was met with the same impassive gaze from the prince. He would take a single, polite bite, his expression unchanging, and then push the plate away. Amir, in his modest kitchen, heard the whispers of the failed attempts. He felt a deep empathy for the young prince, a sorrow for a life lived without the simple joy of a shared meal. He also felt a stirring of purpose, a conviction that his own philosophy of cooking, one rooted in emotion and intention, might hold the key. With a heart full of both trepidation and a quiet determination, Amir decided to accept the Shah's challenge. He would not rely on ostentatious displays, but on the soul of his ingredients, on the stories they held within them. Chapter 2, The Whispers of the Wind. Amir knew that no single spice from Persia, no matter how potent, could break through the prince's profound insensibility. He needed something more, a chorus of flavors from distant lands, a symphony of tastes that could tell a story of the world itself. He retreated to the quiet solitude of the city's grand library, its air thick with the scent of aging paper and ancient wisdom. For days he pored over weathered scrolls and illuminated manuscripts, his fingers tracing the faded ink of forgotten recipes and travelers' tales. It was in a dusty, leather-bound tome that he found it, a fleeting reference to a legendary soup. Known as the Elixir of Life, the text spoke of a broth so complex, so perfectly balanced, that it was said to contain spices from the four corners of the world. Each spice, the ancient scribe wrote, contributed a unique note to the elixirs. Harmony, a whisper of its sun-drenched homeland, its fragrant soil, its very essence. A fire was lit in Amir's soul. He knew, with an unshakable certainty, that this was the path he must follow. He meticulously transcribed the fragmented recipe, a mere whisper of a guide, and began to dream of the journey that lay before him with a heart full of conviction. Amir sought an audience with the Shah. He presented his humble yet audacious plan to embark on a great journey, to travel to the farthest reaches of the known world and gather the legendary spices for the elixir of life. The Shah, initially skeptical of this unassuming chef, saw a spark in Amir's eyes, a passion that transcended mere ambition. He saw a glimmer of hope for his son, a hope that had begun to fade with each failed culinary offering. The Shah granted Amir his blessing and the resources for his unprecedented expedition. Amir's farewell to his family was a bittersweet affair. He embraced his wife, promising to return with stories to fill 1,001 nights. He knelt before his young apprentice, Layla, a girl with a palate as keen as his own, and entrusted his kitchen to her care. He instructed her to keep the hearth warm, to continue feeding the hungry and the weary, and to listen for the whispers of the wind, for they would carry his stories back to her dot, from the bustling port of Hormuz, where the turquoise waters of the Persian Gulf met the endless expanse of the Indian Ocean. Amir set sail. The salty air filled his lungs, a taste of the adventures to come. As the familiar shores of his homeland receded into the horizon, he stood at the prow of the ship, his gaze fixed on the shimmering sea, his heart a vessel of hope, ready to be filled with the flavors of the world. Chapter 3. The Jewel of the Malabar Coast. The first leg of Amir's journey brought him to the legendary Malabar coast of India, a land of lush greenery and intoxicating aromas. He disembarked in Calicut, a city that pulsed with the vibrant energy of the spice trade. The air itself was a heady perfume of cardamom, black pepper, turmeric, and ginger. The bustling marketplace was a kaleidoscope of color and sound, a chaotic dance of merchants haggling in a dozen different tongues, their stalls overflowing with a treasure trove of spices. Near, accustomed to the more restrained flavors of Persian cuisine, was overwhelmed by the sheer intensity of the Indian palate. He wandered through the market, his senses reeling, his mind a whirlwind of new sensations. He learned to distinguish the subtle, smoky notes of green cardamom from the bolder, resinous aroma of its black counterpart. He marveled at the fiery kiss of the black peppercorns, the earthy warmth of the turmeric that stained his fingers a vibrant gold, and the zesty, pungent bite of fresh ginger in his quest for the finest spices. Amir was guided to the stall of a wise old merchant named Rajan. Rajan, his face a roadmap of wrinkles that spoke of a life lived in the heart of the spice trade, saw in Amir not just a customer, but a kindred spirit. He recognized the chef's deep reverence for the ingredients, his insatiable curiosity, and the quiet passion that burned in his eyes. Rajan took Amir under his wing, leading him through the labyrinthine alleyways of Calicut, away from the tourist, traps and into the hidden corners where the true treasures were found. He taught Amir the secrets of a perfect masala, the art of toasting and grinding spices to release their innermost essence. He introduced Amir to the subtle, sour tang of aged tamarind, a flavor that would add a new dimension of complexity to cooking. Under Rojan's tutelage, Amir learned to cook with the fiery, fragrant spices of the Malabar coast. He prepared a fish curry, the succulent flesh of the kingfish swimming in a vibrant sauce of coconut milk, turmeric, and a symphony of freshly ground spices. With the first spoonful, his own palate was awakened to a new world of flavor, a world of bold, unapologetic tastes that danced on the tongue and warmed the soul. With his saddlebags now laden with the finest cardamom, black pepper, turmeric, ginger, and a precious block of aged tamarind, Amir bid farewell to his newfound friend. He promised Rajan that the flavors of the Malabar coast would forever be a part of his culinary story. Chapter 4. The Dragon's Breath. Amir's journey continued eastward across the vast and unpredictable expanse of the Indian Ocean. Towards the fabled Spice Islands, the Moluccas, the sea voyage was a perilous one. The ship, a sturdy but small vessel, was tossed about by ferocious storms that threatened to swallow it whole. The crew, a motley collection of sailors from across the globe, whispered tales of pirates who roamed these waters, their ships as swift and deadly as the sea serpents of legend. Amir, though a man of the kitchen and not the sea, found a strange sense of peace amidst the chaos. He spent his days helping the ships cook, learning the art of preserving food for long voyages and listening to the sailors' tales of distant lands and exotic flavors. After weeks at sea, a fragrance on the wind announced their arrival long before the islands themselves were visible. It was a sweet, intoxicating aroma, the scent of nutmeg and cloves carried on the ocean breeze. As they drew closer, the Banda Islands emerged from the turquoise waters, their volcanic peaks shrouded in a lush, emerald-green canopy. The air grew thick with the fragrant promise of the spices that had drawn Amir halfway across the world. He soon learned that the spice trade in these islands was controlled by powerful sultanates, the most prominent being the Sultanate of Ternate. The cloves and nutmeg, more valuable than gold in the markets of Europe, were the source of their immense wealth and power. To obtain the freshest, most potent spices, Amir knew he would have to navigate the complex political landscape and earn the trust of the local chieftain, a man known for his shrewdness and his deep connection to the spirit of the islands. Amir, with his quiet humility and genuine reverence for the local customs, managed to secure an audience with the chieftains. He did not come with offers of gold or weapons, but with a gift of his own, a small, intricately woven Persian rug, and a story. He spoke of his quest, of the melancholic prince, and of his belief in the healing power of food. The chieftain, a man who understood the language of the heart, was moved by Amir's tale. He led Amir into the heart of the nutmeg groves, where the air was thick with the sweet, heady scent of the ripe fruit. He showed Amir how to identify the finest cloves, their buds plump and oily, their fragrance a promise of fiery warmth. Amir, in turn, shared his own culinary knowledge, demonstrating how to use a mortar and pestle to create a fragrant Persian spice blend. With the chieftain's blessing, Amir was able to acquire the most fragrant cloves and the most perfectly formed nutmeg, the dragon's breath that would add a touch of fire and magic to his elixir. As he set sail once more, the sweet scent of the Spice Islands lingered in the air, a fragrant memory of a land where the earth itself breathed perfume. Chapter 5. The Grains of Paradise. From the Spice Islands, Amir's quest took him across the vast expanse of the Indian Ocean to the sun-drenched Swahili coast of Africa. He made landfall in Zanzibar, a vibrant melting pot of cultures, a place where the traditions of Arabia, Persia, and Africa mingled in a harmonious dance of sights, sounds, and flavors. The architecture was a testament to this rich history, with intricately carved wooden doors opening onto bustling courtyards and narrow, winding streets that echoed with the call to prayer and the laughter of children. Amir's mission here was to find the grains of paradise, a pungent, peppery spice native to West Africa that had made its way across the continent through ancient trade routes. He immersed himself in the local cuisine, a tantalizing fusion of African staples like cassava and plantains with the fragrant spices of the Middle East and the sweet, tropical flavors of the Indian subcontinent. He savored a hearty ugali, a thick cornmeal porridge, served with a rich, spicy stew. He tasted a fragrant biryani, a dish that spoke of the island's long and storied connection to the Indian Ocean trade. His inquiries led him to the kitchen of a formidable Swahili chef named Zola, a woman of immense talent and a commanding presence. Zola was the matriarch of a culinary dynasty, her recipes passed down through generations of strong, resourceful women. She was initially wary of this stranger from a distant land, her eyes sharp and appraising. Amir, with his characteristic humility, did not approach Zola as a customer, but as a student. He offered to work in her kitchen, to peel vegetables, to scrub pots, to do whatever was asked of him in exchange for the opportunity to learn from her. Zola, intrigued by his sincerity and his deep respect for her craft, agreed. For weeks, Amir toiled in Zola's kitchen, his hands learning the rhythms of a new culinary tradition. He learned to pound cassava into a fine flour to balance the heat of the chili with the sweetness of the coconut, and to coax the complex flavors from the humble yet powerful grains of paradise. In turn, he shared his own knowledge of Persian cooking, teaching Zola the art of making delicate, rose-scented pastries and a slow-simmered lamb stew that filled the kitchen with the aromas of his homeland. A deep respect grew between the two. Chefs, a bond forged in the shared language of food. Zola, seeing the purity of Amir's quest, finally entrusted him with her most prized grains of paradise, their pungent aroma a testament to their freshness and potency. She also shared with him a secret of her ancestors. A pinch of the crushed grains, she told him, would not only add a peppery bite to his soup, but would also awaken the spirit and gladden the heart. With a grateful heart, Amir bid farewell to Zola and the vibrant shores of Zanzibar. He carried with him not just a new spice for his elixir, but the wisdom and warmth of a culinary tradition that celebrated the resilience and the rich cultural tapestry of Africa. Chapter 6. The Sun-Kissed Saffron. Leaving the warm embrace of the African coast, Amir's journey now took him northward, through the Red Sea and into the shimmering expanse of the Mediterranean. His final destination before returning home was sun-drenched plains of La Mancha in Spain, the heartland of the world's most precious spice, saffron. After a long and arduous journey by sea and land, Amir arrived in a landscape that was a world away from the lush tropics he had left behind. The plains of La Mancha stretched out before him, a vast, arid expanse under a brilliant blue sky. The air was dry and scented with wild herbs. It was here, in this stark and beautiful land, that he would find the red gold that would be the crowning jewel of his elixir. He arrived during the autumn harvest, a time of intense and meticulous labor. He watched in awe as the local farmers, their faces weathered by the sun and wind, moved through the fields of purple crocus flowers, their hands moving with a practiced grace as they carefully plucked the delicate blossoms. He learned that the saffron threads were the stigmas of the flower, and that each blossom yielded only 3 precious threads. It took thousands of flowers to produce a single ounce of the spice, a testament to its immense value. Amir, ever the student, sought to understand the soul of this remarkable spice. He worked alongside the saffron farmers, his back aching under the Spanish sun. His fingers stained a vibrant red from the delicate threads. He learned about the history of saffron in Spain, a legacy of the Moors who had brought the precious spice to the Iberian Peninsula centuries before. He listened to the farmers' stories, tales of generations of families who had dedicated their lives to the cultivation of this fragrant treasure. He was invited into the home of a farmer named Mateo, a man with a warm smile and eyes that crinkled at the corners when he laughed. In Mateo's humble kitchen, Amir experienced the true essence of Spanish hospitality. He shared a simple but delicious meal of paella, the rice infused with the golden hue and subtle floral aroma of saffron. He tasted a delicate saffron its sweetness a perfect counterpoint to the spice's earthy notes. Mateo, seeing the deep respect and admiration Amir had for his craft, gifted him with a small, intricately carved wooden box filled with the finest saffron threads, their color a deep, vibrant crimson, their aroma a heady perfume of honey and Amir prepared to leave the sun-kissed plains of La Mancha. He felt a profound sense of gratitude. He had not only found the final spice for his elixir, but he had also gained a deep appreciation for the patience, the dedication, and the love that went into its creation. Chapter 7. The Homeward Wind. With his saddlebags laden with the world's most precious spices, Amir began the long and final leg of his journey home. He traveled overland now, his path winding through the rolling hills of Europe, across the Bosphorus, and into the familiar landscapes of the Anatolian plains. The homeward wind, it seemed, whispered his name, pulling him gently back towards the heart of the Safavid Empire. The journey was a time of reflection. As he rode, the vibrant memories of his travels swirled in his mind like the spices in a well-stocked pantry. He saw the kaleidoscope of colors in the Calicut market, the emerald green of the Banda Islands, the turquoise waters of Zanzibar, and the endless, sun-drenched plains of La Mancha. He heard the echoes of the languages he had learned, the stories he had been told, and the laughter he had shared with the people he had met along the way. Each spice he carried was no longer just an ingredient. It was a vessel of memory, a tangible piece of the world he had experienced. The cardamom held the wisdom of Rajin, the cloves, the fragrant magic of the Spice Islands, the grains of paradise, the resilient spirit of Zola, and the saffron, the patient dedication of Mateo. He dreamt of the soup he would create, not just a dish to please a prince, but a symphony of flavors that would tell the story of his epic journey. It would be a soup that spoke of the interconnectedness of all things, of the threads of flavor and culture that bound the world together. The closer he got to Isfahan, the more his heart ached with a sweet and tender longing for home. He yearned for the familiar sight of the city's turquoise domes, for the embrace of his wife, and for the bright, eager face of his apprentice Layla. He was a changed man. His culinary perspective broadened, his spirit enriched by the kindness of strangers and the wisdom of ancient traditions. He had set out as a humble chef. He was returning as a storyteller, his ingredients, his words, his soup, his epic tale. Chapter 8: The Sultan's Elixir. Amir's return to Isfahan was met with a mixture of quiet anticipation and hushed excitement. The city, which had followed the whispers of his journey on the winds of the trade routes, now held its breath, waiting to see if this humble chef could truly work a miracle. He was no longer just Amir the cook. He was Amir the traveler, the seeker of spices, the last hope for a prince lost in a world without flavor. The Shah, his face etched with a cautious optimism, granted Amir the use of the grandest kitchen in palace. It was a cavernous space with high, vaulted ceilings and gleaming copper pots that hung from the walls like a collection of musical instruments. The finest ingredients from across the empire were laid at his disposal. Tender spring, lamb, freshly plucked vegetables from the royal gardens, and the purest water from the mountain streams. The preparation of the soup became a culinary ritual, a slow and meticulous dance of flavor and aroma. Amir began by creating a rich, clear broth, simmering the lamb bones for hours with sweet carrots, onions, and celery, until the liquid was infused with a deep, savory essence. This, he knew, would be the canvas upon which he would paint his masterpiece. Then came the spices, the treasures he had carried from the farthest corners of the world. He did not simply add them to the pot. He honored them. He gently toasted the Indian cardamom and black pepper, their fragrant oils releasing a cloud of intoxicating perfume. He ground the fiery cloves from the Moluccas and the pungent grains of paradise from Africa in a stone mortar. The rhythmic sound of the pestle a steady, meditative beat. Into the simmering broth, he carefully added each spice at the perfect moment, layering the flavors one by one, creating a harmony of taste that was at once complex and perfectly balanced. The earthy warmth of the turmeric, the zesty bite of ginger, the subtle tang of the tamarind, the fiery kiss of the cloves, the peppery notes of the grains of paradise, each found its place in the symphony. Finally, with the gentle reverence of a painter adding the final brushstroke to a masterpiece, he took a pinch of the vibrant crimson saffron threads from La Mancha. He steeped them in a small amount of warm broth, the liquid instantly transforming into a brilliant gold. He stirred the golden liquid into the soup, the final touch, a whisper of floral elegance, a promise of the sun-drenched plains of Spain. The aroma that filled the palace was unlike anything anyone had ever experienced. It was a captivating blend of earthy, sweet, spicy, and fragrant notes, a scent that spoke of distant lands and epic journeys, a perfume that promised not just a meal, but an experience. Chapter 9: A Prince's Tears. The elixir of life was presented to Prince Karim, not in a grand, jewel-encrusted tureen, but in a simple, elegant earthenware bowl, its rustic charm a reflection of the soup's humble origins in the heart of a dedicated chef. The prince, his face a mask of indifference, his eyes dull with the familiar weight of his melancholy, looked at the bowl with the same weary skepticism he had shown to all the others. The aroma, however, was the first to pierce through the veil. It was a scent that was at once foreign and strangely familiar, a complex tapestry of fragrances that seemed to tug at the frayed edges of his memory. He lifted the spoon to his lips, his hand moving with a slow, hesitant grace. He took a single, tentative sip, and then something remarkable happened. It was not a sudden, dramatic explosion of flavor, but a slow, gentle awakening. A warmth spread through him, a warmth that had nothing to do with the temperature of the soup. The first note he tasted was the deep, savory comfort of the lamb broth, a taste of home, of security, of a love he had long forgotten. Then the spices began to sing their individual songs on his palate. He tasted the sun-drenched warmth of the Indian turmeric, the fiery passion of the Malabar pepper. He tasted the sweet, fragrant magic of the cloves from the Spice Islands, a whisper of a land he had only ever read about in books. He tasted the pungent, life-affirming kick of the grains of paradise, a jolt to his slumbering senses, and finally, he tasted the subtle, floral elegance of the saffron, a delicate kiss of beauty and grace. With each spoonful, a new layer of flavor was revealed, a new story unfolded. He was no longer just tasting a soup. He was tasting the world. He was tasting the dedication of the farmers, the wisdom of the merchants, the passion of the chefs who had shared their knowledge with Amir. He was tasting the storms at sea, the warmth of the sun on distant shores, the shared laughter in humble kitchens. Tears, hot and unexpected, began to well up in Prince Karim's eyes. They were not tears of sadness, but of release, of a joy so profound, so long dormant, that it could only express itself in this silent, liquid form. The flavors had not just awakened his palate, they had awakened his soul. They had reconnected him to the world, to the vibrant tapestry of life that he had thought was lost to him forever. He tasted not just the soup, but the love, the dedication, and the epic journey that had gone into its creation. And in that simple bowl of broth and ice, he found his way back to himself. Chapter 10. The Feast of 1,000 Flavors. The news of the prince's recovery spread through the palace like wildfire. The silence of the royal court was broken by gasps of astonishment, then whispers of joy, and finally shouts of celebration. Prince Karim, his eyes bright and clear for the first time in years, emerged from his chambers, a genuine smile gracing his lips. He sought out Amir, not with the formal gratitude of a prince to a subject, but with the heartfelt embrace of one soul who had been healed by another. The Shah, his heart overflowing with a father's love and relief, declared a grand feast in Amir's honor. But this was to be no ordinary feast. At Amir's humble request, it was to be a feast of 1,000 flavors, a celebration of the culinary wisdom he had gathered from around the world. The palace kitchens, once a place of desperate, failed attempts, were now a hub of joyful collaboration. Under Amir's guidance, the royal chefs learned to cook with the spices of India, the fragrances of the Moluccas, the pungent grains of Africa, and the golden saffron of Spain. The feast was a magnificent spectacle, a testament to the transformative power of food. The tables overflowed with dishes that told the story of Amir's journey, each bite a passport to a distant land. The air was filled with the music of lutes and the lively chatter of the courtiers. Their palates awakened to a new world of flavor. Amir, now bestowed with the title of royal chef, did not hoard his newfound knowledge. He established a culinary school within the palace, a place where young chefs could learn not just the techniques of cooking, but the philosophy of it. He taught them that a recipe is more than a set of instructions. It is a story, a legacy, a gift to be shared. He created a new culinary tradition in the kingdom, one that did not erase the old, but enriched it, weaving the flavors of the world into the vibrant tapestry of Persian cuisine. And so, our story comes to a close, as the moon casts its gentle, silvery light over the sleeping city of Isfahan. Let us leave Amir in his favorite place, his kitchen. The grand feasts and royal accolades have their place, but his true contentment is found here in the quiet solitude of his craft. The fire in the hearth burns low, its embers glowing with a soft, warm light. A pot of simple lentil soup simmers gently on the stove, its fragrant steam rising in a soft, comforting cloud. The gentle bubbling of the pot is a soothing rhythm, a lullaby in the language of food. It is a sound of warmth, of nourishment, of a love that is meant to be shared. It is a promise of peace, of contentment, and of the simple, enduring magic of a well-made soup. Let the gentle rhythm of the simmering pot guide you now into a deep and peaceful sleep, a sleep filled with dreams of distant lands and the comforting warmth of a story well told.